Hi, I'm Mark from Absolute Music, and this is the Blackstar ID X50. These amps come in a 50 watt and 100 watt version at the moment. You can buy optional foot switches for those to expand its features. So let's dive right in. I don't. So the amp features a 12-inch speaker, a really nice simple layout on this. I'm going to start kind of going across the top of the amp here to show you what it can do. One of the main features here is the voicing switch, which takes you from a clean sound right through to clean, bright, crunch, super crunch, OD1 and OD2. This is predominantly featured on the ID Core range, so they've taken some of the easy user interface using there to sort of come up with a really nice platform for this. This gives you your stages of gain, so you can kind of mold this to wherever it needs to be. You've then got your gain control and your volume, which is useful for setting, how much drive you want on those particular channels. You've got your standard bass, middle and treble EQs. The ISF features a really nice thing of Blackstar. It's unique to just them. Basically all the way around to the left is your American styled amp, and you can move that round all the way to the right and it will give you that more British sound. If you can't decide between the two, you can just set that at 12 o'clock. Personally, I quite like it round at the American sound. Another thing that they've borrowed off of the ID Core is the modulation, delay and reverb switches, but I'll go through those in a moment. The main feature that is really impressive about this, which is probably my personal sort of favourite, is the pre-effects switch just in the top here. And basically, using the type and page controls here, you can essentially press the button there and filter through loads of different types. What's really good about this is basically it's putting overdrive pedals into essentially the pre-effects of your amp, so it responds like having individual pedals there. What I love about this is there is a rodent, which is a rat pedal, and a pi fuzz, which is like a big muff on there, but you've also got octafuzz, compressors, overdrives, the likes really, but that is definitely one of my favourite features. You've got the same through all your different banks here, so the modulations, you've got chorus types, you can go through to flanges, phasers, univibes, you name it, it's in there. And it's the same with the delays. So at the moment I've got an analog delay. What's really nice is you've got a tap tempo, which does work on, say, something like a tremolo through the modulation and with delays. And then you've got reverb. The beautiful thing is you can combine all of those on, so you can create some pretty gnarly tones out of this, and then you can save that into the bank channels on here. So we're going to go to that next. I'm using manual mode, so essentially on manual, whatever I choose on the front of the amp now will apply. And then when you go to your bank settings, you've got 3 different banks on the amp, and then you've got 3 different settings that you can save into there. If you plug the foot switch into the amp, you can access another 30 different banks. But that is only accessible through the foot switch. When you buy the amp without that, you only get the access to 3, giving you 9 presets plus manual mode on there. Now, a really good feature of this amp is the fact that it has got a noise gate inbuilt. So basically, and I've got to remember, so you hold the tap button here, and then you can activate the noise gate, which is just brilliant for when you've got a bit of, say, a noisy electrics or a guitar that's particularly buzzy. You can literally silent those out when you're using sort of high gain modes in there. And another feature is really nice, you've got wattage on here, so you can use it 1 watt, you can use it at 10 watts or 50, and then you've got your tube choice. So you've got EL34, I think, or 84, sorry, on there, EL34 and 6L6. Also, this amp comes with an inbuilt tuner, which you can activate by holding down the reverb button. This does kill the sound of the amp whilst you are tuning your guitar in. So we've now turned the amp around to have a little look at what functionality you get on the back. You've got your USB, which you can plug in to use for recording or updates to make sure that the firmware is correct on the amp. Foot switch just goes in the back here. You've then got your cab rig, which is really, really cool. So essentially, this is a line out which doubles up as your headphone port. Basically, if you want to use this with headphones, you can do. However, it doesn't cut the volume to the speaker. You have to turn your master volume down so that you don't get any output coming out. And then this, although it does look a bit like a button, which has been a little bit sneaky, it's actually your headphone level. Or if you do want the sound to be coming out the speaker and essentially you're plugging this into, say, a PA system for live use, you can then independently control the volume that you've got out of there to, get the right sound going to your PA system, and then you can independently change the volume of this and it doesn't affect that signal, which is really good for if, say, on stage you can't hear yourself, you want to crank yourself up a bit, but the sound man doesn't suddenly want loads more volume coming through, that won't affect. The select switch on here gives you two different cab setups there. And then you've got an effects loop. So if you want to plug in pedals into the back of the amp to use with heavy drives and stuff, you can go through the effects loop. And then lastly, you've got a line input for backing tracks, or you can use that for live streaming. So I'm going to dial in a tone here. I'm just going to go for something that I like rather than trying to make someone else's sound, really. So it's super easy. I personally find that dialing in on the manual mode is the best way. So I've just got it set on a clean at the moment. So I personally know that I'm going to go straight over to the pre-effects and I'm going to get one of these tasty pedals on. So essentially I've hit the pre-effects button. I'm going to go onto type. And then I am going to scroll, oh hang on, wrong one. I'm going to scroll down to the Rodent, which is a pedal that I use on my pedal board all the time. So I can set the distortion level using the type. So yeah, that sounds pretty good to me. I'm liking the sound of that. Personally, I fancy, say for example, a little bit of delay on that. So I'm going to turn this on. At the moment I'm on an analog delay. And that's quite a slow tempo. So I'm going to change that. I'm going to tap my rhythm there that I want. There we go. Personally, I do love an analog delay, but not so much with a drive for me. So I'm going to change that. So let's click on type. And I'm just going to scroll down to, let's try and do that again. I'm using the wrong button. I'm going to scroll down to digital delay. So that should give me a lot cleaner repeats. Yeah, that sounds pretty spot on. I can change the mix levels there. It is quite loud in the mix, so I'm just going to dial that down a little bit. Yeah, there we go. That sounds pretty cool. And I'm going to bring the feedback down because you don't want too much of that. Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. So, I'd like to go for a touch of reverb. It's automatically set on Hall. I think that might be a little bit too much for the old gain channel, so I'm going to go on to play. Mix, I'm going to bring that down a little bit so it's not too loud. So basically I've got my sound there, really enjoying that, got the right rhythms for the tap tempo, got my delay. Now this is the really easy part, is essentially, for example, say on channel 1 I want to have my clean, channel 2 I want to have maybe a crunch, and then this is what I want on channel 3. So what I'm going to do is I am going to press and hold channel 3 until it's flashing. I'm then going to press that button, and essentially that sound is now saved in there. So if I go away to my clean and then I go back, there we go, that's all saved in there. This amp is crazy versatile, so we've grabbed Luke to get loads of different guitars and take this amp through his paces. So I've been Mark. Come and check the IDX50 and the 100 out on our website. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.